is now called to order at 6:13 on Wednesday, July 27 of 2022. This hearing is being held as required by the provisions of Chapter 131, Section 40 of the General Laws of the Commonwealth, an act relative to the protection of the wetlands as most recently amended. Notice of the time and place of this hearing was published in the Fairhaven Neighborhood News on July 21 of 2022. It was also posted in the town clerk's office. Persons wishing to be heard will be called in the following order. According to ethics rules, I'm supposed to tell you this is being, I don't know if this is broadcast live or being recorded for later broadcast, but we're on camera. And just so, Chair Robert Rocha, Heidi Pelletier, Everett Filler, Ryan Resendes, and Agent Pat Hannon. And Joanne DeMello, Senior Clerk, off camera. All right. So, minutes for approval. We have June 8 of 2022.
Motion to accept is submitted.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And June 22nd of 2022.
I'll make a motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
I abstain. I wasn't here.
Thank you. I should have, yep. And then lastly, May 11 of 2022. Do you have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous on all three. Thank you for those, Joanne. I know you're almost caught up. Yeah. Okay, looks like no meeting mail. The one letter we got we'll discuss later. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yep.
And we'll read that into the record.
Yep.
Old business. So we have a continued public hearing. An NOI Acushnet Company, 115 Manchester Lane, file number is SE001-0571. The notice of intent was filed by Acushnet Company for property located at 115 Manchester Lane, map 11, lot 25C.34. The applicant proposes to construct a 55-foot by 110-foot visitor center with associated parking lot reconfiguration, utilities, subsurface sewage disposal system, and a stormwater management system within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. Work proposed is limited to drainage improvements and the construction of an infiltration basin. Plan name is Test Facility Visitor Center prepared for Acushnet Company. That's dated April 26th of 2022.
Motion to reopen the hearing.
Second.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So-
We really can't hear you.
Okay.
I have no idea what you're saying.
So we've reopened the hearing for Manchester Lane for Titleist Acushnet Company. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Brian Grady with GAF Engineering, here with Mr. Kelly from the Acushnet Company. I could set this up. What's the best place to?
What do you think, Eric? I'll roll
Either,
back if you
maybe,
want to just put it here, Brian.
Okay. So I know this has been before you previously. There are some minor changes on revised plans that I have for you tonight, so I will just quickly go through those with you.
I don't believe any of them are within the buffer zone.
Correct. Here's revised plans dated yesterday for your record, but all changes that are occurring are outside the buffer zone. They're happening up here. The footprint of the building is slightly smaller. The grading associated with the septic system is smaller. This isn't going to be a T any longer. And since this grading shrunk, we were able to pull these drainage trenches, Nihilplast basins, in a little bit closer to the building, closer to the grading, away from the woods line. Some slight changes to the sidewalk around the building and relocation of the tanks. Nothing down here. This is all the jurisdictional area, if you could recall, down here by the maintenance building and to the left of the entrance driveway on the way up. That's where the wetlands and the buffer zone are. There's some wetlands off-site here. Here's the buffer zone line. So none of the changes affect your jurisdiction. They're all outside the buffer zone, but you have the up-to-date plan for your record. So, and we've also added a planning board signature block as requested. So I think that's a very brief, quick summary of the changes. Again, I know you've seen it before, so if you have any additional questions, or we can provide you with anything else.
Any changes in the sizing of the basins? Any increase in impervious areas?
Impervious actually decreased.
Good.
When this was a T, there was a walkway going up to the T, so.
Was it significant enough to change the calculations, or it's just a minor change?
It's minor at this point,
Okay.
but the impervious areas are slightly smaller. So this was the prior plan. You can see the grading mound was a little bit larger, and there was this walkway going up. So that's the grading's reduced and the walkway's been removed.
I only asked because there was a mix-up in the electronic plan getting over to Beals and Thomas. And they haven't finished their stormwater review. They're very close to being done. And if it doesn't matter, there'll be no reason to slow them down and let them finish.
Right.
So,
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no increases. This is a decrease. So. Right.
So even better.
Yep.
All right. And they've had no questions so far in their review. So.
Yeah, they're free to contact us if
Yep.
they need additional information or questions or anything we can do to help. Yep.
Okay. That's all I have, Bob.
Okay. Anybody in the commission with questions, Mr. Grady? Anybody in the audience with questions for Mr. Grady? So we still need to wait for the final.
You can approve this tonight and issue a positive order of conditions.
Okay.
Stormwater is completely separate. And I'll just send the certificate of completion to Kevin when it comes in.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Yeah. You've never given us a reason to not trust your work either. So-
Yeah, and we'll respond to whatever the stormwater review comes out with,
Okay.
right away.
Yeah, no, this is a first-class operation, so.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to issue a positive order of conditions.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstaining? It's unanimous.
Okay, thanks very much.
Motion to close the hearing.
Good luck.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yo.
Just leave this here.
Aye.
Again. Have a good night.
Take care.
Thanks, Kelly.
See you, Kevin.
Okay, Pat.
Okay, so the next one is not a hearing, but it's old business. So PJ Keating, 72 South Main Street, buffer zone restoration, silt pile relocation. The removal of the silt piles from the buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland, discussion on delay in completing the work approved by the commission.
So the reason I put this on the agenda is I was getting concerned on the timing and the time of year, and then being able to stabilize the silt piles after they move them, and all the things they alerted us to. And I didn't know this letter was coming in from Keating's attorney. But I'd like to read the letter into the record first before we have the discussion. It says, this firm represents PJ Keating Company with respect to its approximately 381 acre parcel of land at 72 South Main Street in Acushnet. We are writing with regard to the item appearing on the Commission's agenda tonight, meeting agenda under the heading PJ Keating Buffer Zone Restoration Silt Pile Relocation for discussion on delay in completing the work approved by the Commission. It's our understanding that this agenda item relates to the work approved under the above referenced order of conditions. As you may recall, in March of 2022, PJK proposed an expedited schedule for performing the work approved by the order of conditions. PJK expended significant time and resources in developing that proposed schedule, and even though the order of conditions allows PJK 3 years until July 2024 to perform the approved work, in an effort to work cooperatively with the Commission, period. Indeed, PJK and its representatives appeared before the Commission to discuss this matter at no fewer than 6 meetings during the winter and spring of 2022. During the Commission's April 27, 2022 meeting, it became clear that PJK could not perform the work on its proposed timeline. Specifically, Mr. Hannon announced that evening that PJK must obtain a soil removal permit prior to beginning the removal and grading work. He also belatedly recognized that an enforcement order would be inappropriate because PJK has an order of conditions, they're in compliance with the order of conditions, and they are, and it gave them 3 years to move the pile. PJK wishes to confirm that it intends to perform the work approved by the order of conditions within the 3 years allowed. following receipt of a soil removal permit from the Acushnet Soil Board. PJK is in the process of preparing an application for a soil removal permit, which is currently on track to be filed in September of 2022. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Please do not hesitate to contact me should you have any questions. And I wanted to read this into the record because I take exception on page 2.
And also state who sent the letter, the name.
This is from McGregor, Legier, and Stevens, and this is from Attorney Legier from that firm. And this was sent on July 26th, 2022. So I did bring up to the commission at that meeting that he references that I was concerned that the moving the stockpiles was going to be delayed. What I said was, it's as simple as asking the soil board if you need a permit. And I think if you check our meeting, that was what I asked. And the reason I put this on the agenda is this really is as simple as the soil board posting a meeting, holding a meeting where PJ Keating comes in, shows them the order of conditions, what the commission approved, and approves a work plan, the same that we did, and says go to work. It doesn't involve a soil removal permit for the entire quarry. It just requires a plan to be sent to the soil board and an approval to do that specific job and to put it in a specific place. And that's the end of that enforcement order. And that's all I have on that. It's not the commission that's holding up, it's the soil board. They haven't met since the election.
So does Keating ask the soil board to hold a meeting?
Yeah, all they would have to do is can we come in and present to you what we want to do, and can you approve that? They don't need to get a permit approved for the entire 381 acres for soil removal. Very, very simple
That's not
little
what
thing.
we're asking them to do.
They're just trying to make something bigger out of this than it is.
Why didn't you tell them that on April 27th then?
We did. And that's what I said to you. If you watch the video, you'll see that I said you just need to ask the soil board if you can move it. Didn't say you need a permit for 381 acres. Didn't say you need to do all that.
Okay. So,
I'm just letting you know, we
Right.
don't need to take any action on it
Right.
or any of that, but when a letter comes in, saying that I specifically am delaying them, I'm not. But we have someone from the public who wants to ask a question.
Hi, I just remember
yeah,
the
just
last,
for the record,
my name
Diane.
is Diane Abram.
Thank you.
I remember the last meeting we went to, Keaton said that they would remove the pile by September. Well, first it was June, and then it got moved to September. And I'm just wondering, what's going on with this? I mean, if they were told, say they were gonna move it, now they're not moving it, I don't understand.
Right, so I'll piece this together as best I can and correct me here if needed. So they had proposed September, we had proposed June, I proposed, split the difference. Just, do it while it's dry enough to do it. And then they were told, they need to get approval from the soil board to do that, whether it's a full permit or the soil board advises, you can do it, just give us a plan for that putt. So that hasn't happened yet. So, as Mr. Hannon said, they can send a letter, a plan to the soil board, which is also the board of selectmen. And the board of selectmen can decide how they want to proceed. Whether they want a full-blown soil removal permit for that pile, or just whatever they're gonna,
Yeah, so it comes down to there's 3 different jurisdictions here. The Conservation Commission has jurisdiction over the piles being in the buffer zone and also impacting the wetlands from the erosion. The Board of Health has taken the stance that the soil piles are solid waste and that they don't belong on the property and they should be properly disposed of off-site. The soil board hasn't discussed this. I brought to the attention of the commission that if they ordered Keating to move these piles without saying that the Board of Health has an issue and the soil board has an issue, they would say, well, the town approved it. The Conservation Commission is the town, and they told us to move the piles, so we're going to do what they said. And it would be best if all three boards were in unison and it got done right the first time. And that's all we're trying to achieve. Board of Health is on board, but the soil board hasn't met.
I have another thing. At that meeting, I had asked, why are we waiting so long? Why did we do it in the winter? And they said, oh, you can't do it in the winter. So they keep dragging their feet. Winter's coming. Before we know it, winter will be here. So what is the next excuse we're gonna have? Is there an excuse or, I mean, I just think it's not fair to the people on the, north side of, no, it'd be the south side of the town. They're polluted with all that silt that's sitting there. And I just don't understand, a company that big, and I questioned this at the last meeting also, a company that big, they told me they didn't have trucks to move it. That's $1 billion company. You mean you don't have trucks to move it?
I can't answer that.
I mean, I'm just saying, I just think they're just dragging their feet. And it's just-
I think it's a little bit of both parties involved.
Okay.
I don't think it's just,
Well, then somebody needs to get off and get something done.
I agree.
End of story.
We just want the soil board to
I'm
post a
not
meeting.
blaming you all. You
Meet
all
with
are doing
Keating.
your part as best you can, but
Get it
there are
done.
other parties involved that need to get on board some way.
If you wanted a question, comments.
So perhaps.
If it's okay with you and the commission, I can respond to Mr. Legiere's letter.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, or maybe even tonight, and state, here's what we discussed, here's a recommended way of moving forward. Yeah, we all want the same result.
And I would recommend that you copy the soil board. And
Okay.
maybe you send another email to the clerk for the soil board, Lisa Leonard,
Right.
and tell this is important to the commission. Let's get it resolved.
Joanne, you happen to know the new selectman's email address? Do you have that yet?
Actually, just for sake, let's recognize Selectman Hinckley's here tonight.
Oh, there you are. I'm sorry. So, I don't have your email address. Huh?
You ready?
Ready.
RHINCKLEY
Right.
at acushnet.ma.us.
That's funny. That's what I typed in a couple of like a week ago, and it bounced back. Maybe I spelled something wrong.
A lot of people miss the C.
I thought I had that in there. All right. Well,
That's
I
why
don't know
I'm here, paying attention.
if you have any questions or comments about what we're talking about here.
Nope.
Okay. So you, as a member of the soil board, know then that
That's why I'm here.
the three of you have the ability to help move this along. Okay.
So will you send that, Bob, or you're gonna let just Mr. Hinckley, go through Mr. Hinckley now?
I think it should be in writing from me.
Oh, just for my notes.
Anybody on the commission with comments, advice, or cautions or anything?
No.
If you do, you can always send me an email too. Because one-on-one is not a violation of the open meeting law. All right, any other questions, comments, concerns about this topic? Okay, we'll move on to the next thing then. New business, I need someone to open the public hearing, please.
Motion to open a public hearing.
Second,
All in favor?
All right.
aye.
So we have an NOI, John Romanelli, Retreat Lot C, Peckham Road. New file number is SE001-0574. Notice of intent was filed by John Romanelli for property located at Peckham Road, map 16, lot 8. The applicant proposes construction of a single-family 4-bedroom dwelling. The applicant is represented by Jamie Bissonette of Zenith Consulting Engineers, LLC. Plan name is Subsurface Sewage Disposal System, Retreat Lot C, Peckham Road. It's dated July 6th of 2022. Yeah, looks like Mr. Romanelli is going to speak on behalf of this, so.
Good
Floor
evening,
is
John
yours, sir.
Romanelli of Zenith Land Surveyors. I'm
And
here
Eric,
in
let me know if
replace-
my big head's in the way. Should I slide back a little bit?
You want to? I can move this. There you go.
Jamie's coaching softball with his daughters too, so we have to pitch it for him, so that's why I'm here. This is Lot C of the 3 retreat lots on Peckham Road. Let me flip this over real quick so you can see the this is a much reduced scale, but the lot itself is 5 acres. This is Peckham Road, this is the little cemetery on the top. So the lot itself is 5 acres in size, a little over 60,000 square feet of upland area. So just wanted to- and you can see
Yeah,
the,
just for context too, B and A are
I think it's actually
Below.
C, D, and B.
C, D, and
Because
B.
we had some
Okay.
other lots out front.
Okay, but there are 2 lots south
Correct.
of that.
There's one lot, Josh Aruda lives at the end of the common driveway and is actually occupying the home that's there now. And George De Silva is building on lot D right here next door
Okay.
and is probably a little more than halfway done with his home. So what we are proposing is the last single-family dwelling. It's roughly a 2,100 square foot home, 4-bedroom septic system. I highlighted that in pink. Board of Health did have a couple of questions with the original perk tests. They were done a long time ago. Joe Curry asked if we could re-perk it, where the system is gonna go, just to see what the soils were like. So Will Connolly from Zenith Consulting Engineers did a perk test, I think back in April, and those results are right here. Got a 7-minute per inch perk rate. Water table is very high here. I think they had weeping at 56 inches. So it's gonna be, it's gonna be built up considerably from what's there now. We do have, as far as stormwater runoff, all the roof drains are into a Cultex system that's on the north side of the property here with a little detail going on. We did have a site walk on Saturday. I know you weren't able to make it, Mr. Chairman, but I think it's pretty clear that the property has been well stabilized. Josh has the erosion control in place. The detention basins are finally under construction and doing what they're proposed to do. So we're finally making some headway out there. And that's basically the extent. If anybody's got any questions, I could hopefully answer a couple.
Start with you, Pat.
So, very straightforward project at this point because all of the infrastructure's been built out. I will say that since the commission went out thinking about an enforcement order there, that Josh Aruda has done an excellent job of finishing up the basins and getting vegetated.
Yeah, I took some.
It looks like $900,000. If he had the money to pave that road, it would be just the nicest place in town. It's turning out to be a very nice project. The only thing I would ask is that, do you know when, has the Board of Health approved the septic plan yet?
They have not. I think they're waiting for your approval.
Okay. Did Joe go out and witness the perk?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Then we should be able to approve that tonight, Bob.
So for those of you that were there, thoughts, comments?
Oh, looks good.
Looks
Great.
good. Nice place.
Yeah.
Yep. It's a really nice development.
I'm guessing you 3, you have your focus back towards home. Anybody else? Okay. I don't have any questions. It's nice to hear you putting all the roof drains into the Cultex system there. That's great.
And for the record, this is for my son, by the way. He's over there.
Yeah.
Oh,
We've got to get him out of my house.
Do you have a better
I
billing rate?
recognize your
for your
technique.
son? One quick comment on stormwater. Stormwater was handled as a whole for the whole development.
Yeah,
So John's son doesn't need to get a separate stormwater approval for that lot.
right.
Under the bylaw, it's done in the aggregate.
Gotcha.
So that was done under the planning board way back when.
Super.
And you answered the question I would have had about the stuff that hadn't been built earlier in terms of the road drainage, and you said it's all
Yeah, you should
Looks
take a ride down
fantastic.
there. It looks
Yes.
nice.
good.
Yeah, it does.
All right, I'll entertain a motion for a positive order of conditions.
So moved.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstaining? That's,
Can I-
that's,
Can I ask for the standard condition of a 2 weeks notice before the job starts and erosion control inspection?
Definitely.
I have that.
Okay,
Everyone,
Great.
everyone, yeah.
getting it on the record.
Moving
So
forward
far.
with you.
all right,
You've got
that's
it.
unanimous.
Thanks.
Going forward.
Thanks, John. All right.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Nice to see you, Dave.
Yeah, take care.
All right, motion to close this hearing.
So moved.
Second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's close. Good. Next, we have, other new business is public hearing, stormwater. We don't have any. So, go on to the discussion agenda. First thing, pollinator garden.
Yep, very aggravating. As you know, the commission spent years, building up a pollinator garden and taking care of it at the entrance to the golf course.
With some scout help.
And we
correct?
recently made an agreement with the local scout troop that they were going to maintain part of the garden. And they've made some investments in things and brought tools out there. Probably 2 weeks ago now, Joanne?
At least
Maybe
that.
3.
Yeah.
I got a Friday afternoon phone call from Steve Tibbles from the golf course. That they were moving the shed from the pollinator garden. And the pollinator garden was a weed bed. And they were going to mow it down, and that was the end of that. So I told them not to move the shed. That it was in the the purview of the Conservation Commission, and a little more notice than at the final hour on Friday would have been better. And he said, well, it's probably too late to not move the shed. I think DEPW's already been here and moved it. So I went to the golf course on the following Monday, and the shed was nowhere to be found. It wasn't at the golf course, it wasn't up there. So I went next door and I asked Dan Menard what happened to the shed, and they said, we crushed it. It was a piece of junk, and we demolished it and we threw it away. And lo and behold, on Tuesday or Wednesday, the scoutmaster called and said, we're going there Saturday, where's the shed and where's all our tools? And that's where we're at. And I would like to have Steve Tibbles come in and explain to the commission why they thought they should do that. And not every weed is not a pollinator, and just because you don't recognize it as a flower, it's not worthless. And we've got a very disappointed Boy Scout group.
Yeah, and what happened to all their tools?
Yeah.
She had to go track them down and find. He said they were at the golf course. She was going to go meet him at the golf course. It was just a big inconvenience for the Scout troop.
Did they get their stuff back?
I don't know.
Yeah, because that's badges.
Yes.
Sure, you can come to a meeting and
Yeah,
explain.
we should have someone to come in and explain.
Yeah, sure.
And have an understanding that this is Conservation Commission territory,
Yeah.
and you can't just arbitrarily go down there and decide that that's not a pollinator garden and I'm going to mow it.
Yeah, no, Marley invested a lot of time.
She really
Yes.
did, and a lot
Yes.
of volunteer work
Yep,
too.
yeah.
And I think the community is involved in it.
Yeah.
And by getting the Boy Scouts involved in it was the next step to asking some more people if they wanted to get involved in a public garden and
Yeah.
carry that on.
Yeah.
So
All right,
Did you say they mowed it?
he said he was going to mow it. He has mowed some of it,
Okay,
but there's a lot there.
check it out.
yeah, they should leave it alone.
There's been a few comments that it's their land and they want to sell it, that it's a house lot. I don't know how true any of that is, but it's the gateway to the golf course. He gave me a story that there was a scramble the next day and they wanted to make it look better. Well, I don't know how many years that shed's been there and the pollinator garden's been there, but that, to me, that was just an excuse. That,
It hasn't been that long.
yeah. So and there was nothing ugly about the shed.
Yeah.
So
It was a donation.
Right.
Did Cinda Williams, she the one who donated that?
I knew she had a lot to do with it, but I
Just
don't know.
wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not their stuff. All right, next item, Wetlands Protection Act, NOI account, PAF for clerk's stipend.
So, as you know, the board voted quite some time ago to recommend a grade change for Joanne to move from senior clerk to administrative assistant. And for lack of a better description, it just seems to have fallen on deaf ears. And it wasn't a $1,000 a week raise or anything. It was a very minimal bump. And Joanne is doing extra work. The workload has increased for her. And when I took over as the interim planner, I signed what was called a PAF, a personal action form. And based on my personal action form, I got an extra $200 a week for being the interim planner and setting up the planning board meetings and doing that work. And I don't know why the commission couldn't vote to initiate a personnel action form, recommend a stipend for the personnel actions form, and send it to the town administrator for signature. This isn't something that gets approved by the selectmen and handled by politics. This is just a straightforward, someone deserves to get paid more money for the job they're doing, and here's what we want to do.
And it comes out of the.
And it comes out of the Wetlands Protection Act fund, does not affect the taxpayers in any way, does not affect the general budget by $1. These are fees that are collected for wetlands jobs that go on in the town, for us to maintain an office, pay personnel, do activities like the pollinator garden and things like that. Those money can be used for that.
Conference costs.
We're not using it.
Yeah.
We have $40,000 in our Wetlands Protection Act fund just sitting there.
Okay.
I recommended at the beginning of the budget year that we take half of Joanne's salary out of the Wetlands Protection Act fund and take some pressure off the budget. And that fell on deaf ears as well. We're not using the Wetlands Protection Act money for what it's supposed to be used, and in fact, we're not using it at all. So,
Well, I like the idea of using this to give
yeah.
some more money to Joanne. So what's your recommendation in terms of, are we applying it to meeting times? Are we applying it to stormwater work? How do we apply that?
So we can't pay her any money on a PAF out of stormwater from the Wetlands Protection Act fund. And that's why it's on here twice. So it's on here under stormwater too, whether the commission wanted to decide to do a PAF from the stormwater fees. But there's more money in the Wetlands Protection Act fund that would sustain that and not drain the fund. You never want to drain your wetlands money down to zero. So I would recommend giving her a $75 a week stipend for Conservation Commission and pay it out of the Wetlands Protection Act fund.
Okay. And is that as simple as you fill that out, one of us,
And
or
you
I
sign
sign it as
you
the
sign it
chair?
as the chairman. And then it goes over to, you folks would vote to do it. You would sign it as the chairman, and then it would go over to the town administrator for approval. Nothing says he's going to approve it, but it's not coming out of the budget.
Right.
It's got no effect on the taxpayers whatsoever. This is somebody that's worked here for 33 years and has been fighting for a 21 cent an hour raise for I don't know how many years. At least the 2 years I've been here, and it hasn't happened. And this year, no raises, no cost of living raises for anybody in town hall. We should give her the stipend.
I agree.
She deserves it.
Yep.
So, just so we get it on record, make a motion that we empower our agent to fill out a personnel action form that I will sign on behalf of the commission for a $75 a week stipend, for money to come up directly out of the Wetlands Protection Act, the NOI funds.
You okay with that amount? Is that fair?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so good. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yep.
That's there. So next is reappointment of commissioners.
So, although I got probably no less than 4 phone calls on the list of reappointments, they still reappointed Paul Valenti. And Paul Valenti shouldn't have been reappointed. So I don't know how they handle that, whether he has to accept his appointment or decline his appointment, or it's as simple as, you having Joanne send or you sending an email to Lisa Leonard saying, Paul Valenti hasn't been here for 2 years and wasn't supposed to be reappointed and wasn't interested in being reappointed.
And I think
If he doesn't come in and get sworn in by the town clerk, he's not on the commission.
But he's been appointed, and it needs to be reversed. It affects our quorum, whether he's been sworn in or not.
All right. I'll send an email to Lisa.
And then in the event that someone else wants to join the commission, it won't look like the commission is full. And you'll have a vacant seat on the website, and you may get some interest.
Okay. Take care of that tonight too. Any other comments, questions about that? Okay. On to stormwater, so Stormwater Authority.
So I had a chance to talk, I did talk to the chairman last night for a little bit on the phone about the stormwater situation. I did speak with Jeff Blake this morning, town council. I can't tell you everything he said because that is confidential information between us and town council. We'd have to have an executive session to talk about all of that, but we don't need to. So I explained to Jeff Blake that things are getting a little squirrely here with the stormwater. And it's on the agenda under this, but what's bothering this is Deep Brook Estates. Joe Costello came in maybe 6 months ago, poked his head at the door and said, you know, I'm Joe Costello from Deep Brook Estates, am I all set? And I said, do you have a stormwater permit? Well, you know, I don't know, and I said, I'll check it out. For me, if he knew he was all set, he wouldn't have come in and asked if he was all set. That was kind of a interesting, you know, way to breach the subject, and I really think he wanted to know, do you know everything that's supposed to be there? So I asked him to get a stormwater permit. His feeling was that he bought a project that was already fully permitted, and that he didn't need to get a stormwater permit, that he assumed that it had a stormwater permit. For me, he bought a project that he bought the permits that it had. And in doing his due diligence, if he didn't discover that there was no stormwater permit, you didn't do your due diligence, and you need to get a stormwater permit. Looking at what's going on at Wing Lane and the failures of the stormwater systems and infiltration basins and all of those things, that's what makes me want to have Deep Brook Estates go through the full stormwater evaluation. That's one of the most environmentally sensitive areas in this entire town. And I got notified that the town administrator and Selectman Gaspar were working on bypassing the stormwater authority and just basically saying that there was a stormwater permit for Deep Brook Estates, and you're all set. They are looking for a letter from the town planner saying that, you know, that was all set. I called the town planner today and said, do you have a document that there was a peer review and there was a review of the stormwater? He said, no, I do not. Okay, then this needs to go through stormwater. If it doesn't go through stormwater and he gets a stormwater permit, another person who we had forced and made to comply with our regulations could come back and say, you treated me differently than you treated Deep Brook Estates. And this is what's going on with P.J. Keating. And P.J. Keating just filed a second lawsuit against the town on June 16th against the soil board, this time claiming up to $100 million in damages. And they want to be exempt from permits. They want the judge to tell them they don't need permits, you don't need a soil board permit, you're grandfathered. And these are all things that were already resolved in the court case. So if the town administrator's office is going to bypass the Stormwater Commission, I don't think you've had any phone calls about Deep Brook Estates. I haven't had any phone calls from the town administrator's office about Deep Brook Estates. And they've gone to the town planner, and he's not the stormwater authority, and he's not the stormwater agent. So I would like to send a letter to the town administrator that the commission met, and I would like the commission to back this up, that this needs to go through the process. I checked today, there's no financial assurance for the erosion control systems and basins. That's one of the biggest requirements in the stormwater bylaw, is that someone posts 20 years worth of money for the maintenance of the system and the eventual replacement of the basins, so that the taxpayers of the town don't wind up paying for this when it fails, and whoever owns the subdivision doesn't have the money to do it. And this has happened a lot of times in other towns. So I'd like to send a letter to the town administrator that this needs to go through the Stormwater Authority.
Great. So, and to clarify, are we Stormwater Authority, or is it?
Well, that's the
planning?
next. That's
Okay.
the next.
But you bring up a good point about consistency and not opening up us to a lawsuit if we don't hold everybody the same standard. And I got myself in trouble. I almost got us in trouble by wanting to waive a fee for a permit.
Yeah.
And I was told that the town insurance company was ready to sue the Conservation Commission. So when that project proponent came before us, we said, you've got a choice. And he said, all right, fine, I'll pay the fee. which puts everybody back on the same plane, as it were. And I want to keep it that way.
I mean, I came to work for the town of Acushnet to do the job. I've been sued twice now, and I would like to not be sued a third time.
Right. And I don't want any of us getting.
If anyone
sued.
gets sued that works for this town and you go to apply for a mortgage or any type of financing, it asks on your application, are you involved in any litigation? And if you check that box off, yes, you're not going to get your loan. And if you checked it off, no, you committed a federal crime. So who wants to get put in that position?
Not me.
So I'll send a letter to the
Yeah.
town administrator.
Yeah, this is certainly nothing personal against Costello or
No.
anybody else.
No.
You know?
But, town council for the 2 years I've worked here reminded me that the town never waives a bylaw. Then why do we waive it for certain people?
Mhm.
And why would the Stormwater Authority be overridden by people who aren't even involved in it? They don't know a detention basin from a retention basin.
Okay. All right, so on to the next thing then.
Stormwater bylaw.
update, yeah.
So, as you know or may not know, there was an amendment to the stormwater bylaw that was proposed at the Springtown meeting. And it wasn't voted down, but it was tabled and no action was taken on it. And in that amendment was an amendment that changed the authority of the planning board being the stormwater authority to the Conservation Commission being the authority and having the ability to delegate that authority to any other commission or person they wanted to. So if you remember earlier last year, earlier last year, I asked the commission to accept the planning board delegating the stormwater authority to the commission because it made sense that we're approving all these wetlands things and that the stormwater goes hand in hand. And we can make sure that what happened at Wing Lane and a few other places don't happen again. And you took that authority. And now you're kind of they're going behind your back when this commission has that authority. So in talking to Jeff Blake, when the stormwater bylaw did not pass at Springtown meeting, the board, the planning board is still the stormwater authority.
Wow.
And until that has been changed, they will remain the stormwater authority, but they delegated that authority to the Conservation Commission. And I just want to bring up, do you want to remain the stormwater authority, seeing as the bylaw didn't change, or do you want to vote to send that back to the planning board and let them deal with their approvals and the town administrator and all of those things? We took something on that appeared pretty benign, but it's turning into a bigger and bigger thing. And it's turning into a lot of work for Joanne. And the peer review is a heavy lift. It's a very expensive process. There's a lot involved in it. And she's only here 4 hours. And it takes you an hour just to get started. And the phone rings and people come through the door. People press O to get operator and they wind up getting the Conservation Commission. And she's taking phones and transferring calls. So I don't know what your feelings are on that, but you're for me, you're not being respected for the extra work you took on as volunteers, and to not contact you and try and do things, behind closed doors that could lead to a lawsuit, and could lead to this commission being sued.
Yeah.
Is wrong. So if I was a commissioner, I would want to send that back to the planning board and let them deal with what's going on in town right now. It's just crazy.
I disagree. I think we should keep stormwater. Pretty much every town has it. That has the conservation is the stormwater authority. They're all switching over, so I say we stick with it.
Yeah, I have conflicting thoughts. A, your point about us, protecting wet resources, wetland resources, I think it makes sense for it to lie.
That's why I got you into it.
Right.
Yes.
I'm concerned about the extra work for Joanne,
And,
but
and no extra money.
and no extra money. She's saying there's a possibility of being able to help with that too. Or helping with that mean taking the responsibility.
So we are collecting stormwater fees,
Okay.
but I don't know if there's going to be enough stormwater fees to sustain a $75 a week stipend.
Mm-hmm.
And if large projects like this don't have to pay a fee and don't have to get a permit, that hurts our ability to pay the stormwater clerk. The job has definitely expanded. The money's in the Wetlands Protection Act fund. It's there.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best vehicle for the town to do it. She deserves a raise,
Mm-hmm.
and that would cover the extra lift from stormwater.
Right.
I just don't think there's enough in stormwater to sustain it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to agree with Ryan on this one. I like the idea of us still being stormwater authority because it's a wetland. It impacts the wetland resource. So I realize there's planning issues that do too, but
Very minimal. It really didn't belong there.
Okay.
Because the commission was approving NOIs prior to the site plans and stormwater being approved, and like we saw tonight with Titleist.
Yeah.
A small change came in the door. Luckily, it was a decrease in impervious area, an increase in impervious area. And that question wouldn't be asked at the planning board side. And I agree with Ryan saying, and I got you into this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just making you aware that, I got you into this and I don't want you guys to pay the penalty that some of the other boards have paid.
Well, I also think as long as you're keeping us informed and Joanne's keeping us informed, we can cover our backs here.
But the other side of that is I wasn't reappointed to my position as a stormwater agent. So you have no assurance that I'm going to remain the stormwater agent. I could be, I'm an employee at will.
Right.
I can be released at any time for no reason whatsoever, is the advice I'm getting.
Right.
And that's a bad position for me to be in, and my family to be in.
Yeah.
And
it's bad for us if we end up without an agent.
Yeah.
Yeah. And no apparent replacement. So, since you're in the room, Mr. Hinckley, I'll pass along my concern and my, I don't know if urging is the right word, but we would prefer that our agent be appointed as opposed to an employee at will. Because it adds some consistency for us to know that, he's not just able to be bounced and then we're stuck without an agent without any warning.
Sure.
So, I don't know any other stormwater comments, questions?
Why, this is silly, but why was he removed? Was it something he did?
No, I wouldn't say he was
Or-
removed. The fiscal year ended June 30th.
Right.
New fiscal year comes in. The town, whether it's the selectman or the top town administrator, I'm not sure exactly who makes those decisions, either reappoints or doesn't.
Is it a paid position? Is that
Oh,
why?
yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's why. See,
Yeah,
it's
so
a
he's
money issue.
50% conservation, 50% Board of
Board of
Health.
Health.
Oh, okay, so it's a money issue, basically, what it comes down to.
Well,
I would let them answer that part of the question.
I can tell you that I'm the only department head that did not get reappointed. I think it's political. I think it's because I was asked to go out and issue a cease and desist order to someone, and I didn't because they actually did a good job. And someone's feelings are hurt. So,
Politics
let's all
should
grow
get
up
involved in
and
town.
get on with our jobs.
It's too bad the politics gets involved in a wonderful town like Acushnet is to make everyone's life miserable.
Yeah.
It's a shame.
Any other stormwater comments, questions, concerns? Ryan and I have spoken about keeping stormwater. How do you feel?
I think it's a huge change in our little committee here, but I think it is important. I mean, that's what we should be doing. I do worry about all the other stuff too, being sued and Joanne, the work, I just don't see how she could do it because she's doing like major other things as well, So I worry about that, but I'm not opposed to it.
Ever?
I thought it was a lot of responsibility to be given to us, but it does kind of fit our format, what we're doing, what we're supposed to be doing. Be nice to have training like we did for conservation. Somehow get some
Good point.
Yeah.
basic training, somehow.
And I think that once the bylaw has been amended, because the bylaw's from 2007, and EPA has some mandated changes to the bylaw. And once all of that is in place, then Conoco could come in and run to the MS4 with you and give you all the responsibilities and all of that. You would get that training. But more importantly, the town needs to let you be the stormwater authority. If you've been appointed to the stormwater authority, you need to be it. Nobody else, no other deals in another office. This is the stormwater authority, and what you say goes. Those would be the only terms under which you want to do that job. Otherwise, you're putting yourself out and putting yourself at risk.
Yeah. No, I like those terms.
What exactly in our current bylaw doesn't keep us up to par?
Illicit discharge detection, infiltration issues, total suspended solids, removal rates, and that's all I can think of off the top of my head, but there's a couple of others dealing with residential versus commercial. But at our next meeting, I can get the red line version that was presented for town meeting, and we can have that discussion.
I want to put them side by side.
Yeah.
And
I'll give you a comparison.
yeah.
What helps certainly is the fact that we're having Beals and Thomas and businesses like that do those reviews of stormwater projects.
Yes, and I think you'll agree that Beals and Thomas takes a very deep dive.
Yeah.
And does a really good job versus what I saw from the company doing for the planning board.
Yeah, because it's
And it turned
certainly,
out the company doing the reviews for the planning board was actually subbing it out to another engineer who was subbing it out to another engineer.
Yeah.
And they were taking up to 6 months to be done. And if we get the right paperwork in, they're usually being done within 4 to 6 weeks.
okay. Yeah, and that's beyond anybody's expertise on this commission.
By far, yes.
Okay. So good, so we'll look forward to seeing the old and the new at the next meeting from the
Yeah,
2007 to the proposed.
yes.
We'll go through that. Okay. All right, so thank you all for your feedback on that. Year-end MS4 update.
I don't know if any of you have noticed, but there's been a Conoco crew in town for the last week or so, popping manhole covers and checking outfalls. And for the first time since 2007, we will be in compliance with our MS4 permit on stormwater. The annual report will be ready in about a week and a half. That'll go to the town administrator for signature, and it'll go off to EPA and DEP. And the only thing we won't be in compliance with is the updated bylaw. But because it was tabled at town meeting, that goes in the report, goes to EPA, and we have time to get that passed. So they won't penalize the town over something like that.
Good.
What if it happens again?
You're gonna get a fine. And that's why it's important that the stormwater board is the stormwater board.
Right. It's amazing how we passed the MS4 inspection with the outdated bylaw. How does that happen?
Because the inspection is about outfalls and,
I know, but I get it. I'm joking.
okay. You gotta tell me twice, I'm Irish, it takes me a minute to get it.
Did you see Everett's shirt, by the way?
No? Oh, there it is, yeah.
Can read the rest when I stand up.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so and then discussion of hiring a part-time clerk for stormwater permitting and compliance.
So if the town administrator turns down the PAF for Joanne, then I think we should submit a request that they establish a part-time stormwater clerk.
Mhm.
And someone can
need
bid
it.
on the job and the taxpayers can spend some money on doing that
Right.
versus the money coming out of the Wetlands Protection Act fund.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because she's not getting paid to do it, and she's already underwater, recovering from being on a medical leave and everything else that's going on.
Mhm.
So,
And
We've got a path.
Splitting the time with us and
Yes.
right? Yeah, BOH, yeah.
and we've got a path to pay her and not
Yeah,
affect
with
the taxpayers.
anybody in town having to pay for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can't see how anybody would object to that. Logically, why anybody would object to that.
And that's the key word, logically.
Yep. We've got a way to do this. So that's it for stormwater. Updates from you then. Anything else we haven't discussed?
So we've already beat up the reappointment matter. My only question was the commission consulted before I wasn't reappointed? Did anyone ask you your opinion?
No.
Did you guys say I did a bad job or something that I wasn't reappointed? I really believe it's over the violation that a root is. And
So, Mr. Hinckley, I will resend the letter because I emailed, Jamie Kelly, Kevin Gaspar, David Wonar, and I guessed at your email. I'll do that tonight. I'll make sure that you see it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
And then are we going back to bi-weekly meetings?
Oh, are we?
Or do you want to stay on the monthly meeting and see? I just think Joanne has more time to get things done if she's not getting ready for 2 meetings a month.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we should continue the once a month experiment a little bit longer anyway.
Yeah, it's only been one time.
At least
Better for
another
site
couple of
visits?
months.
Yeah.
At least for the summer months.
Because
Yeah, really.
I mean, like this is just the first time that we haven't. I mean, I made my own extra long by spacing the last meeting out. But,
So
Right behind you.
I think we should try and experiment because basically that's what we're doing right now. We're experimenting to see if the time works that way.
And we have nothing that we've continued.
No.
So that's not a concern.
So something I'm seeing that's not on the agenda.
But wait a minute, let me think this through, because Mr. Sharon did probably send out, I just assumed, I guess, that we would
Okay.
be meeting. So I think I told Mr. Sharon that,
But he didn't make the filing date.
yes, today,
He did?
yes.
All right, well, then we'll have a meeting and
he
then we can go
probably
back
sent out
to,
about his
to-
notification, so
All right.
I didn't realize we would.
Okay. So there's that, and maybe something coming in from Nancy Durfee too, right?
Yes.
From Morton Lane.
and then maybe Wing Lane too,
And then blacksmith
Well,
too.
Yep.
Yeah.
What's going on, Nancy?
blacksmith.
And I have a
Kind.
COC
They're
from
gonna-
Mr.
they're gonna do
Pacheco,
an-
yes.
a
His COC is
But
at Gary
that's
Camp,
not
he was here the next day.
That wouldn't be advertised,
He's already dropped his check off, he's
Yeah.
already
Oh,
done
okay.
all of that.
Yeah.
so it would just be Rick Sharon's.
And maybe Wing Lane.
Ring Lane didn't make again.
Oh, that's right.
So it would just,
DEP sent an email telling them that they filled their paperwork out wrong at DEP. They should hire a Massachusetts engineer that knows how to do a wetlands filing. I mean, this is just a comedy of errors of everything that's gone on at Wing Lane. Everett and I had a in the office conference with the solar field at
White's Woods.
Morse's Lane. And it's the same contractor as Wing Lane. And that was why I insisted on having a meeting here.
They don't have a certain stormwater permit, do they?
Who's that?
White's Woods.
Not yet.
Yes. That was granted by the,
But they didn't have the stormwater. They hadn't done their stormwater yet, had they?
yes. I wrote the certificate of completion for that when I was the interim planner. That got done over there. That was a that was a SW Cole nightmare of, it got subbed out and subbed out. But they did. And you threw me off of what we were even talking about that, but. Oh, so I mentioned to the engineer who was here, who asked, like, you saw the emails like 5 times to have a meeting.
Yeah.
And when he showed up, he wasn't ready to have a meeting. The things that changed at the job, he was totally unprepared. So we went through the plan, and we went through all of the things they said they would do. And I said, I just want you to know that I brought you here today so that I can tell you that we're going to enforce every one of the things that's written in here. If you say butterflies are going to fly out of the bushes, we want to see it. And if you say you're going to leave 10 trees in one spot, you know, we want to see it. And the contractor said, I better go back and go through that again and make sure. So that was a very worthwhile meeting with those guys, and we have not heard a word since. I heard from the planner that they actually have an access problem, and that they may not even be doing this project, that somebody else owns half of the road. And he wants telephone numbers for his half of the road. And they don't have access to the project after all of this.
The Morton Lane project or the Wing Lane?
Morton Lane. Remember him telling us that they found
That's
Morse.
Park Drive.
Morse's.
I'm sorry, Park Drive.
Park Drive.
Park Drive,
Oh.
Sincar.
Park
I'm
Drive.
sorry.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
And
David
the
White's
first thing he
project.
sat down, he
Yeah.
said, you know, we got blown up yesterday at a meeting, we don't have access. I was just informed. And what he really wanted to do is he wanted to mobilize and get his equipment on the ground and then get delayed. And now you're getting paid. You know, you're there, you've mobilized, the job has started.
Right.
And we gave him every opportunity to get right back to us, and we haven't heard a word.
Okay.
So,
Those are the two
And I-
right next to each other.
yes.
And
Morse-
Park
Park
Drive
And Morse.
has a stormwater permit
Yes,
also?
I wrote that. Yep. That was through the planning board as well.
Oh, okay.
There was like 4 all at once. The planning board didn't know what to do, and they were kind of just breezing through the stormwater stuff. And when I read the bylaw, when I took on the position, that's when I realized it had to be peer reviewed. You had to put up the finance assurance. You had to do those things. And that was a struggle getting them to do it because all their approvals had been 2 years earlier.
Right.
And they were in the final stages of, you know, button up little things with the planning board, and I showed up. And the financial assurance for the decommissioning is, you know, close to $1 million for some of these, and the town's going to hold on to those bonds for, you know, for 20 or 30 years. And until just recently, the town wanted cash as surety. The treasurer collector wouldn't accept a bond, and they finally acquiesced because no one can put up cash and tie it up for 30 years and do that many projects. It'll cost you about 2% to get a bond for that kind of money per year.
Excuse me, I was wondering, is Morse's Lane gonna be an access road to the solar farm?
I don't know offhand.
What was the question?
Morse's Lane, an access road to the solar
To
farm.
one of the solar farms, yes.
It was
Yeah.
supposed to be, yeah.
Morse's Lane itself is, yes, there was a lot of discussions about tree cutting and truck traffic and traffic routes, trucking routes, police
They
detail.
widened the road a little bit, they didn't move the poles, so it's kind of odd the way it is
They,
down there.
they can't because there's wetlands involved,
Yes.
and that would involve
So
money from the
should we
town,
expect
filings.
a lot of big machinery down there?
only for a short time. They do that pretty quickly.
Okay.
That they have big equipment, and it clears land really fast.
And I need your name for the record,
I'm
please.
sorry, my name is Joanne Pacheco, I live at 25 Morse's Lane.
And the planning board did take special care to accommodate traffic impacts, truck routes, starting times.
How about the land, I mean, as far as cutting down so many trees back there, as far as, there's a lot of nature back there.
The town didn't have any regulation on that, and I think that's why the selectmen voted a moratorium on solar fields in town. So that project escaped the moratorium, but I think it's 6 months moratorium?
I believe so, yeah.
So there won't be any new solar fields permitted until the town has a revised and more robust regulation on tree cutting and things like that.
Thank you.
Back to the meeting dates question.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I can reach out to Rich Sharon because I believe in the abutters notification, there is no clear date that
Mhm.
they include on that.
Mm-hmm.
It just says, please reach out to the Conservation Commission, the date of the hearing will be publicized in the newspaper 5 days ahead, so if you want me to reach out to Mr. Sharon, I can.
Yeah, because if that was going to be the only thing guaranteed to be on the agenda, let's
Yeah.
wait until August 24th.
Yes,
If I'm doing my math correctly.
Yep.
yes, you are.
Yeah.
Yep, so the.
Doesn't
the
sound like
filing
there's
said-
any objection from the commission either.
Yeah.
Okay. And,
That was
and
for,
again, this
um,
gives you more time to get caught up.
Yeah,
on
I think
things,
that
too.
would be great. That was gonna be for a project on Porter Street. I believe you gentlemen, ladies went there several years back for a new home.
That's right. south end of town.
Yeah.
Porter Street, it's almost.
What is it, Porter?
Yeah, it's almost.
Oh,
in
yeah,
Porter
yeah,
even,
Yeah. So
Okay,
he wants to do some.
yeah,
Porter Street
yeah,
runs
so reach out. to
parallel
Rick
to
and
Lawson
Alright,
Avenue
yeah.
down to the
Right.
river.
August 24th.
And just so the commission knows, even though I've been out sick, Joanne and I are in contact every day, maybe even more
Right.
than if I've been here. You couldn't make the site visit, so I made the site visit. I'm not gonna leave the commission hanging over a health issue, but I'm willing to support whatever's needed there. But we forgot
No, yeah, we
415 Middle Road. We
No,
forgot
we-
to put that on the agenda.
Oh. Well, you can talk about it because you did site visits.
Yeah.
You did go out there. Yeah.
So-
we'll include this in
It's right here.
agent updates.
Yes,
So yeah, you can do it.
I know, but that's not the agenda. That's the site visit sheet.
Oh, I thought
That's-
you said you could do it through agent updates because you
Yeah.
attended
Well,
the site.
that's what the chairman wants to do, so.
Okay. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Mr. Hinckley, please.
Bob Hinckley, 6 Brookside Drive. I just want to clarify about the solar moratorium. That's actually the planning board that's responsible for that. Just in case anybody does have any questions about the solar moratorium, that goes through the planning board. They have the option to extend or decide if that's the project. That I believe they're currently doing research and touching base with other towns
Okay.
to make sure it's appropriate. But just in case anybody had any questions, it wasn't the select board that did that. That was the planning board.
Good to
Thank
know.
you.
Thank you for that
Excellent.
clarification.
Excellent. So I had received a couple of complaints for 415 Middle Road. That there were large rocks and other things being trucked in or trucked out and trees being cut down and other things. I didn't get these complaints direct from the person who complained. It came secondhand either from the town clerk's office or from Joanne or from others. So I went there. And Mr.
Moratitas?
I will say that
Yeah.
Mr. Moratitas, I'll let you handle that. Responded pretty quickly to me. I went by, there was no answer at the door. I left a cease and desist order under his windshield wiper. And within 15 minutes, he called me back. I went back and met him. And he explained what he was doing. And I explained what I had looked into. So it turns out that in 2005, and we might as well just get this on the record, that in 2005, when the house was being permitted,
Mm-hmm.
there was a superseding order issued by DEP to the commission's approval. And that superseding order was that there wouldn't be any further construction beyond a certain point at the back of the house, and that there would be a living fence planted there, and that living fence would be maintained in perpetuity. I don't know if that got recorded at the Registry of Deeds, the superseding order, and that may be something that we should think about in the future. That came from DEP. I don't know if there's any requirement for the applicant to file that superseding order. Maybe this is how this happened. So, long story short, in 2015, Mr. Moratitas buys the house, and in the title search, the superseding order and the restrictions from DEP don't appear.
Mm-hmm.
So he was not informed when he bought the house that there was any restrictions on doing anything else on the rear of the property. He came in front of the commission in 2015 asking to put in a 36-foot long swimming pool by I don't know how wide, beyond the area of where the living fence would have been.
Mm-hmm.
The commission had no idea about that. That notice of intent didn't make it into the meeting, and the commission approved an RDA to install a 36-foot pool and associated accoutrements that went with the pool. And he did that.
Mhm.
And he did a very nice job. And he put in a very expensive stone wall. And when I went out, he was in the process of getting ready to finish paving his driveway. He wanted to fix the pavement. And I had him stop, and he has still stopped. He hasn't done another thing since we asked. We met with him Saturday. He's agreeable to anything the commission wants to do. He just wants to get it done and move on because he owns, multiple businesses, and there's a new problem every day. So he'd like to get this problem behind him. Talking to the commission and getting some feedback from the site visit, there is no violation there. He got permission to put the pool there. He got permission to do that work.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see any boulders. I didn't see any concrete. I didn't see anything. There was 6 truckloads of dense grade that was brought in to level off the ground and make a suitable surface for the pavement that he was going to put in. And at the site visit, he asked if he said that he wanted to put a shed at the end of his driveway for all of his stuff. And I had said, well, you should forget about that. That might be a stretch. But the more I thought about it, the Wetlands Protection Act says that there is no buffer zone if you can prove that there won't be any impact to the buffer zone. Once the driveway is properly paved, I don't see how putting a shed at the end of the driveway would impact the wetland. And especially if it was...
I thought he was talking about more than a shed. To me,
Yeah,
it
but
sounded...
I called them back and said, look, you can't build Wally World back there, but it does make sense to let you store your snow blower and lawnmower and all these things in your shed, out of the rain, maybe even as just things that shouldn't be outdoors.
Yeah, something small like that, but I thought the way he was talking
His camper,
barn size for a motorhome.
Always
and
ask
about,
for more than you want and take what you get.
yeah.
So I asked him if he wanted to put in a small shed. So it would be my recommendation to the commission that he files an RDA to finish the driveway, and that we give him permission to put in a reasonably sized shed within the next 2 years, so that he has time to think about it and do it right, and that is the last improvement that could be made to the property, and that is recorded at the Registry of Deeds. And that would be that. Now, there's been some controversy over some trees that he wanted to cut down at the front of his house. And he's willing to forego cutting those trees down based on the site visit. Doesn't want to upset his neighbors. He said that he talked to his neighbors about it, and at the time they weren't that upset, but I could see there'd be some serious daylighting there if those big trees came out. It would be a big change. So he's amenable to working it out with the commission and the neighbor. But I do recommend the IDA in a 20 by 30 shed or something like that.
Was a COC issued from the work from 2015?
Yes. No. From 2005. 15 was an IDA. Didn't require a COC.
Oh, I thought it was.
No, it was an IDA.
All right, I put notice of intent.
the property.
Everything was an IDA.
Okay.
And for the record, please.
Yeah.
Law.
I live next door to him.
Can I have your name for the record, please?
I'm sorry.
Can I have your name for the record,
Oh, I'm
please?
sorry. Patricia Tebow. I live at 405 Middle Road. Okay. I've been there all along before there was any house there at all. And when that house was first built, I was against it because it was wetland. And we were able to keep it from being developed for a while. I had to keep sending money in for, and I just couldn't afford it anymore. And so they built this house. And the people that lived in it, they couldn't go beyond 6 feet beyond their deck. There was hay bales all around because it was wetland.
Yep.
And then this man moves in, and next thing you know, there's an in-the-ground pool. He's got stockade fence up. It's like there's a compound back there or something.
And that's what he's built. He's built himself a nice little, family compound. And
Yeah.
but
How long a driveway does one man need?
well, that doesn't really matter to us. It's whether or not he can do it under the Wetlands Protection Act, and that's
Can he do that?
It's a previously.
How big a driveway is this going to be? How wide?
Well, as I told the commission on Saturday, we have a mapping system that the state has called Oliver. And every year the state takes a picture of every piece of property in this state and it goes on a website. So I went back and I looked at that property from 2000 all the way to present day.
Mm-hmm.
And that driveway has not become any bigger since 2005.
Mm-hmm.
It's not any longer, it's not any wider. So it's a previously disturbed area as far as this commission is concerned. Paving it would be far better for the wetlands to the right and to the rear than having it be a dirt driveway and have sediment every time it rains.
Well, as far as
He did what he thought was right, and the commission approved what they thought was right. But because of a superseding order, it was missed that pool should not have been permitted.
well,
But it was.
He and I talked about it.
Yep. But it was permitted. And he
well, it may have
you know,
been permitted, but
he did the right thing.
He knew that it was wetland. That he, if he did it, if he got it, it'd be pretty good if he did get it. But anyway, as far as building a little shed, he has a camper, he has a couple of ATVs,
Mhm.
He's got a boat.
Mhm.
Cause he's got a riding lawnmower and all that stuff,
Mhm.
but I mean, how big a little shed is this gonna be?
My recommendation was 20 by 30 or smaller.
Yeah,
I mean, it won't be big enough for this shed,
No
or, I mean, for the
boats
boats or the
Yeah,
campers or anything like that.
It might be okay for his riding lawnmower and a snow blower, but, you know, it's his property and it's allowable under the Wetlands Protection Act, and that's what we need to go by. If it's allowable under the Wetlands Protection Act, we have to give him the permit. It shouldn't matter how long it is, how much it costs. A lot of people come to conservation commissions and say, you know, that's gonna be a lot of money. It doesn't make sense that they're going to do that work, but that's not what matters. What matters is,
He can afford it,
right,
you know,
and if you look around, he can afford it.
you know?
But he has been very responsive, and I give that a lot of weight,
Mhm.
that he got right back to us. He let us right on his property. He agreed to do things right away. And,
But those trucks going down and dumping all that gravel and stuff down there, that was kosher, that was okay?
it didn't go into the wetlands. It's on top of the driveway. In the end, it's only this much on the whole length of the driveway, but they brought it all in at once. I was there right after it came in. I put a cease and desist on the Bobcat that was there and on the windshield of his car because he didn't answer the door. I mean, we have other people that we have, you know, real violations, and we can't get them to call us back and even let us on their property. So,
Yeah.
and this would be the end of any more work at that property. And he has agreed not to cut down the trees that you're concerned about. So he does care about being a good
He's cut down
neighbor.
every other tree that there is back there.
But that was his prerogative.
And you know, yeah, he was building a pool there, he knew it was forest back there. You know, hello, there's gonna be leaves.
But he got an approval to do it.
Mm-hmm.
He applied for a permit, he paid a fee,
Mhm.
he pays his taxes, and he was allowed to do it.
Okay.
It's, you know, we can't get involved in the semantics of it.
Yeah.
And I see things. We had another project where someone cut down, you know, almost an acre of trees, and it really affected the neighbors, but he had the right to do it. There was nothing we could do about it. And that's pretty aggravating to some people. And they're still mad.
Does anybody know the answer to this question? How far away from somebody's property line does a fence have to be?
So if it's more than 6 feet, it requires a permit, and I believe there's a 5-foot setback.
A 5 foot?
5-foot setback from the property line.
Okay.
But anything 6 feet and under, I believe, there's still a setback, but it doesn't require a permit. But that you get that information on the town website from the building department.
Okay. It's not 5 feet.
Yeah,
He's got the fence all along.
I'm not surprised.
I was just curious.
Yeah. If I bought a piece of property, I would have it surveyed, and I would tell the surveyor, if it's in my favor, put the stakes in the ground. If it's not in my favor, don't put them in the ground.
I don't think he had it surveyed because the front of his property, it curves into where I've got a little garden there, and I put a garden there because there's nothing there. There's just flowers there. But he doesn't think that that's his land. That's his, because there's big old pine trees there. And he says, well, that's not my tree, that's your tree.
It'll be both of yours when it falls down.
Right.
on neither of theirs.
All right.
Well,
So if we're
you
set,
can have the tree.
so we're set with 415 then.
So I'm gonna contact him and tell him to submit an RDA, and then we can vote on the RDA and go through that.
Also update regarding, is it 1094 Middle Road, the property behind 1122, which is where the phone call came from.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that. But Jillian was talking about that today when I got here.
St. Armand, that property there. Or it had been owned by St. Armand just to the north of Brookside, the trailer park. Right, Joanne, Deborah Perry.
Yes.
So you haven't been to that one.
I have not.
All right, and I didn't get a chance to call her today, so she had called in and Deborah had called you, and then I called her from home last week. So she's at 1122 Middle Road, which used to be Erwin Marx's house, next to the little
Main Street.
Main Street, sorry, 1122 Main, next to a little cemetery where there's a lot of headstones with the white
Yeah,
family
Quaker
name.
Cemetery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the complaint was that there was some clearing going on, because there is a brook that runs north-south on the property, and I think it must run underneath Brookside Estates, and she had said
Oh,
that
yeah.
someone had been back there clearing too close to the brook, and, you know, she ended up,
And she said there was a bulldozer out there too.
yeah, and she called,
I did get a phone call
and
about
she
that
called the
equipment.
Acushnet police, who ended up going over there
and told
talking
them to
the-
stop. Now you're,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he stopped. I guess he was kind of freaked out by having police come out, but Debbie harangued the police until they're like, then walk through the brook. Just tell
I'm
them to
surprised they
stop.
did that.
Yeah,
So,
no,
so you know my medical situation, but I told Joanne I am going to come in tomorrow and go to Deep Brook
okay.
because I don't want that to get turned into a big deal. We should just be proactive and nip it in the bud.
Hmm.
So I'll go there. I'll do
Okay.
those two.
Yeah,
And I'll send out an email of what's going on.
yeah, because whoever it is bought that from St. Armand
Right.
and owned, you know, they own back there. It's a big open field
Mhm.
just to the north of.
It's very frustrating to get that phone call at 3 PM and you're 67 miles,
Yeah.
you know, north of town. So,
So then you give Pat Deborah's phone number.
I did brief you on it, but.
Yeah, I'll hit that.
Yeah, and I went for a drive the other day, and
Yeah, I noticed it
I
too.
pulled into that little cemetery, and I couldn't see anything from the cemetery. You
Yeah.
know, but that's not a
But
good
if you go
vantage
down-
point. Yeah.
Where the motorhomes are. It's
Yeah.
right there, you can see.
Okay.
I don't know
I
how
didn't
far
even
down they go,
think to do that.
but I know they've been storing, the new owners storing.
Yeah, I don't know
Or
those
renting, like, they're doing some also driveway work back there. And stuff.
Okay.
looking at that pile of plans there, can we make a change that we don't need 3 sets of paper plans? Please send them to us electronically.
Mm-hmm.
Because this just takes up a lot of room here
Lot
and
of
winds up in the
paper.
trash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the day of computers and
Right. Do you need any paper copies of anything?
electronic is far better. And this is
Yeah.
what actually happened to Titleist was they delivered a whole bunch of paper copies. Beals and Thomas asked for electronically. We emailed the secretary and asked for
Right.
electronically, and it didn't go out.
Right.
And then when this came up, I called Beals and Thomas, and they said, you know, we still don't have that electronic plan.
Wow.
So
I do think the one place where they're useful is at the site,
I agree.
but the engineers can bring those.
yeah, but that's why the one set for the office wouldn't be a bad idea to
Yeah.
go in with the NOI and,
Yeah.
and be in the file
Right. So that way you don't have to turn on a computer and start
and a
looking.
thumb drive.
Yeah, at least one. for
So one set, but not.
Yeah, we got 3 and 4 sets,
Not
and
three.
some of our files have 3 sets of plans of the same things. And if we went through and purged all
Sounds
of
like a recycling project.
that, yes.
All right.
You paper the bathrooms with them.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, good idea. Do something.
Were there any other places you visited Saturday that haven't come up on the agenda that would fit under agent update?
We went to Blacksmith
Blacksmith.
Drive, we went to number 10.
Mm-hmm.
He was ready for his COC. There was more than 70% vegetation there. It looked really good.
Mhm.
So I told him to put in the application for a COC. He has. He's dropped off the check, the paperwork for the registry of deeds. And is he good already? Did it get sent in or
Yeah, he dropped off the check, I told him I would put it on the next agenda.
next agenda? Yeah. So we'd be voting on that.
Okay.
And there's no hold up to him to wait until to your next meeting.
Okay.
Mr. Holiday called from 22 Burr Ave. He called yesterday. He just wanted to know if you had done the site visit and found out anything on Burr Avenue.
I took a ride by there. I mean, it's
Did you see what I'm talking about? That it's right at the toe of the slope, right at the edge of the wetland.
right. All the
It might have grown in.
it's all coming back.
Yeah,
Everything.
it does.
Yeah, you can't kill that stuff.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Talking about Japanese knotweed?
yeah, no, weed's back. I mean,
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's like a 3 or 4 year process of
It's-
cutting it,
But
poisoning
we
the
knew
top
that.
of it,
Yeah. Good
doing
luck
it
with
like
that.
3 or 4 years until you finally get rid of it, and
See
it
the other
gets down
states
to the runners
going
and
down the
kills
road.
all that
I did.
too.
Okay. I couldn't make sense
It's like
of
that
They
with
don't look big enough to be
Phragmites, the
lost.
common reed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And he
not, I don't
just
even
bought
think
that
that's
house
big
and
enough
wanted
for
to
a
make a
lot.
yard
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah,
Yes, right,
but good
and
luck.
it's like, yeah, we said
That's way
good
back.
luck.
No,
Right.
you couldn't have enough Japanese beetles eat that stuff either, and that's a whole other problem.
I told him to call back.
You need to speak up.
Yeah, I told him to call back tomorrow morning.
Yep.
So.
All right.
What do I tell him?
If you want, give him my town cell phone number, and
Okay.
I can talk to him.
Okay.
Okay, any other updates?
Tomatoes are almost ready.
Yeah.
And lock your doors, because I'll be putting zucchini in your garden.
Good.
Oh, man,
That
so
stuff
many
grows up
cucumbers
nicely.
and tomatoes, it's gonna be great.
So let's plan on our next meeting being August 24th.
Send a reminder.
Yes.
Never.
So site visits will be the Saturday before, which is the 20th. Okay. Super. Anybody else with business
And
for
will
the
that
commission?
meeting, you want it here?
What's,
Or
it doesn't
Can
matter.
only be one thing. We just never know what's gonna be there and how long they meeting is gonna be.
I think
Okay.
Lisa did tell me that the selectmen, when he's here, we're gonna switch to another night. I don't know if it was Monday night or Tuesday night, they were thinking about changing their
Well,
nights.
I think it's
say
the finance committee that we
they
always.
usually run up, I guess, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Today, the Board of Assessors was meeting at 4:00.
yeah, they're
I don't
not
know.
usually too bad.
Yeah.
It's up to you guys.
Let's
This is
do it
home.
here. It sounds like a small agenda, and let's do it here. It's not gonna bring in a huge crowd, and if we know there's ever going to be an agenda with a big crowd, then we have it somewhere else.
We'll move.
Well, it might be,
Yeah.
there might be the Wing Lane, and it might, be Vic Sharon.
Yeah, but no, there's no public input for Wing Lane. This is a stormwater matter, not a notice of intent. This is a stormwater for Wing Lane.
But it's, okay.
Oh, no, if they file the notice of intent, that's gonna need a file number. There's gonna be a MISA review from Natural Heritage on that.
Mhm.
That's not going anywhere in a hurry.
Okay. So in that case, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
All right.
Meeting adjourned at